Greetings, folks. So, the last day of this piece now, and let's have at it, shall we? Right then. Just gather my thoughts and perspectives over this thing. What I need to be doing. Right. Okay. Righty-ho. So there's a couple of areas that I want to just step up the darkness a little bit. Excuse me. There you go. And today is about line work. So I just want to get that subtle balance, going, and it's very subtle. It's just a case of darkening a certain area. So basically I want to darken this area a little bit, the top of this tree area here a little, and aspects of that top corner over there. So yeah, that's what I want to do in terms of that, and then I shall get on with the highlights rather than the lowlights. So it's turned into rather an interesting piece in terms of its lighting, and that's the claim that I made right at the very start. However, what I never claim is that it will turn out exactly as I envisage it to, which is all part of the letting go of it, of having the control over how it's going to look and feel, and so I can't envisage that from the outset. It has to reveal itself, and that is something that has to be allowed. And it's I've come to realize that it's an Achilles heel of many an artist, is this idea of letting go. Of having to have that control. We cannot. Every day a mosquito. Every day. Doesn't matter what. Just, there's always one. And when you take out the one, there's another. There's always one there. generally speaking, I tend to go more for the seascapes. But I've had a short run of these land-based works for some time now, which I've been quite glad for. It's always good to explore one's abilities and technique and what have you, and that's exactly what these my Artsy Lockdown sessions are all about, really. So yes, it's been an interesting journey, especially with this one even. Where it's a very distinctly different energy from a seascape. Well, in the traditional sense of the seascapes that I generally work with, which are these crashing waves, and there's that whole vibrancy to the energy and what have you. And here there's it's almost the opposite. There's a calmness, a serenity. So it's really good fun to get to take up the challenge of depicting a scene like this. Just getting a little bit of the gnarled bark detail in this foreground tree. Just using a couple of different colors. Even a kind of brick-like pink. Let's see what else I can use. I think a little of this green as well. Right. What I also wanted to do was bring in a little bit of very dark blue, indigo, and perhaps a little actually let's do that first, a little lilac into this piece, so it's not all together this. There we go, that's enough, just like that. You won't be able to see it, unfortunately, in the, even if it's quite a high resolution video, but I'm just doing a very faint, very subtle wash of lilac, and it will only, I can barely see it myself, it will only show up on close inspection, especially this, because it's now mixing with the compressed charcoal black, which is an inky black, and just taking that edge off it, just very subtly. You might be able to see a couple of little flecks of this lilac, but ever so subtle. I just want to pick it up a little bit on the floor of the forest here. Again, what I was talking about during the previous artwork, about the use of warm colors versus cool colors, and most certainly the blues and the lilacs fall into the latter category of cool colors. So where there's deep shadow, use cool colors. Where there are more highlights and lighter areas, use warmer colors such as yellows and oranges and that kind of thing. Just as I've done here, where I've got the marigolds and then the greens are can be in between. You've got the sort of bottle greens and so on are. And obviously forest green are cooler colors, and then you've got the lime green and sort of a grassy type green, which is quite vibrant. That would be then the warmer colors, and kind of bridging the gap. And I hear Mr. Kit Kat. I wonder if he'll come and say hello. He wasn't here when I got up, but now I can hear him tinkling at his bowl. So perhaps he'll come through and say hello, begrudgingly, as always. It's so funny because he is such a warm-hearted little fellow, And yet when you pick him up, there he is. Hello, Kit. Hello. Good morning. And yet when you pick him up, he just turns into a sack of potatoes. Hey? There he is. Hey, Kit. There you go. Good of you to join in. Right. And with that change of pace, we shall turn to the deep indigo. And this you'll see even less because it's a dark color and it goes even darker against the black. So just subtly building that with these different hues, building the tonality along with the depth and dimension and all of these things. That's what comes with engaging many different colors where they're needed. Because if you think about it, all colors are in everything. The entire color the visible human color spectrum is in everything. Everything that we look at. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and everything in between. Right across the spectrum. Interestingly enough, white and black aren't visible colors. They're created through the bringing together of many of the aforementioned colors. In other words, if for example in print, yes, you get black, but if you apply in the printing press, if you apply 100% of yellow, 100% cyan, and 100% what's the other one? Cyan, magenta. Sorry, magenta. If you apply 100% of each color, you'll get black. And then percentages in between, you get variations in color. So for example, 100% cyan and say 50% yellow will give you a bottle green. Drop the percentage of the yellow, at least the cyan a little bit, and you get a grassy green. I don't know that I'm explaining myself too very well here. So, for example, on a monitor, on a screen, on a television, the light spectrum is made up of 3 different colors, being green, red, blue, and black is then constituted by full on red, green and blue mix. White, on the other hand, is an interesting one, because if you take a color wheel that's got all your colors around in the full spectrum, all the colors of the rainbow, and if you spin that wheel very fast, it will turn white. visibly it will turn white when all those colors blend together. And that's not in print, of course. This is now the visuals, visually in terms of light. So it's an interesting balance, and I can only really comprehend it to a certain level without taking a degree in optics. But for now, what I do know is about building the dimensionality and form that comes through the use of color. So now, instead of having this dark, just basically black shadows and what have you, I've got in there magenta, blue, vegan poo brown, deep green, a bunch of colors along with the black, of course, because back to being, it's the original state of this artwork is a charcoal piece, charcoal basis, together with pastel. So the charcoal is always there, and I can still see it all throughout. It's everywhere I look, there's still charcoal. So now I've got, along with the charcoal, I've got this richness of color that's building up. So yes, it's quite pleasing to see that close-up develop, starting to take shape. The next time you go outside, walk in a forest, anywhere in fact, if you look into the shrubbery or even at the grass, and if you contemplate it for a length of time, the eye will start to assimilate to the macro aspect of what you're looking at, and start to see different colors emerging. If you don't just expect to see green looking at grass, and you start to see blues and shade areas and yellows and all sorts of other colors emerging. So what you see is not necessarily what you get. What you think you see is an illusion. And that's what I really enjoy working towards depicting in my work, is that from a little distance away, standing back, some of my pieces can seem to be fairly realistic, and yet you come close up and that really is an illusion, because I'm not depicting specifically anything. Come up to there, it's just a bunch of scratches and colors and what have you. If I zoom in on an area like that, it's just a few smudges, and yet I'm still managing somehow to depict a pine forest. And that's what I really enjoy about these, the language of art. And why just simply copying a reference image is not what it's all about. One of these days soon, I'm going to do an interesting abstract. Those of you who don't like abstracts, you just have to bow out for a few days. Because I came upon this image purely by fluke yesterday. I've got a number of hats, one of which is it's a straw hat, and I had it over my face like this, and I was looking up into the top of the hat and inside, and where the mesh of straw was, there was this, and of course it's very close up, so my focus was very blurred, and of course all these just different shapes and colors and textures came into being. So I wanted to do something fairly large scale, perhaps half the size of this, I don't know, but depicting that which I see from the inside of my hat. Fascinating. It really, and I think this is perhaps because, as I've been threatening for some time, I want to start working a little bit more with the abstract, and I think this appearance to me came because I was asking for it. So I'm very excited about the possibility of doing the probability. No, not the probability. The opportunity to go to do that. So in the weeks to come, perhaps I'll give it a bash. Definitely give it a bash. Right, let's have a little sit back here. I want to use, where's my, there we go, black Conte. I want to do some line work here. Waiting for time. About half an hour left. I hope this doesn't reflect too much into the camera when I put these very shiny clamps there in different positions. I can't see what you can see. How it reflects, in other words. You can hear the painted reed frogs in the background. Sorry, getting in the way of the... But next week, however, like I said, we shall be tackling a seascape. So okay. Okay. What I really want to do now is work with some of the cool colors. And really just allow the certain aspects of this glade amidst the trees to pop a little more. just the odd little touch of color down here. Perhaps they are fallen leaves catching the light. I don't know, something just to break the sullenness of this dark area here. Solemnity, whatever you want to call it. And a wee bit of marigold. Just again, very subtly. And then some of the pale yellow as well. Lemon yellow. Just little touches, little flecks, tiny little highlights. To complement the green as well. Lovely. And one more. Let's just do this luminous yellow. Of course, it just turns out a little bit brighter than the others, and I just want to touch it here and there. Doesn't come out that bright against the other colors, but it's just enough to build that comparative wall of sound, just that wonderful cadence of color. That builds the form and intensity of depth of field. Lovely. Yeah, that works out quite nicely. Ah yes, especially towards this little focal point area. Just pulls it up quite nicely, doesn't it? Right, don't want to overkill, and I want to bring in a wee bit of pale blue, if I can find it. There we go. There. Just a touch again, it sparkling through the trees. Filtering through the trees, I should say. Rather. This piece is certainly very impressionist in certain aspects. Right. And now some white. I want to use a little bit of white pastel here, just to get the ball rolling. No, I don't think I shall use white pastel. I shall use white Conte. Just a little bit more subtle and more controllable. Where I really want to work with it here is here in the wonderful detail of the bark of the pine tree. The odd touch of lichen and moss grows amidst the bark of the tree, quite deeply grooved to this bark, and very longitudinal. Further accentuating obviously the height of these, the stretch of these trees, the reach. And just pulling in some very soft lines into this shadow area. Again, just bringing up the form a little more. Right, and a little bit of black, Conte, and we're about done. Right, done. Now, I'm going to, it's a bit pointless trying to use black down there to sign with. You won't see it at all. I think I shall maybe use my white contour to sign with. No, I'm going to use something a little lilac. Yeah. Yeah. 2022. There we go, that's subtle enough. Depending on the light. Alright, there we go, people. So yes, thank you for joining me this week and sharing the process with me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. It's really turned out to be a lovely journey. Quite enjoyed pulling this together. So yes, next week, as I said, it's going to be a seascape once more, in building up to my demonstration on Saturday the 12th of March. And yes, so do tune in again next week. In the meantime, oodles and oodles of toodles, and be good, be kind, be caring, be gentle, be loving, and all that stuff. And yes, I hope you've enjoyed the process, and do take care. So see you again next time. I'm waffling now, I know, but anyway, see ya, bye. But don't forget to doodle.